Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. I am John Kurtz. Apologies, my background is not totally done yet. Having some difficulties with the acoustic paneling I'm putting up, but hey, it's like a surprise every day now. You get a new background. Anyway, it's like a surprise every day that you get a new playoff proposal from the Big Ten. And this one is, well, guess what, guys? It's not good. It's not good at all. And the Big Ten is once again getting roasted across the college football world for trying to do more damage to the sport that we all love. And look, the SEC is not totally innocent in this either. I want to point that out, Big Ten fans. I'm not here to just crush the Big Ten today. I will also make note of the fact that we have seen the SEC also has played a role in this, but they're trying to expand this thing so damn wide, guys. Trying to expand this playoff so wide. We'll talk about it all. First of all, just why it's a bad idea in general for the sport, but we'll also talk about what it means for the Big 12. Has it actually changed anything for the Big 12? I will tell you, I think this is a tempting one for the league, but I think you know where I'm going with my ultimate conclusion on all of this. Okay, so thank you all for being here. Rest of the show tonight, we're going to talk some big Big 12 quarterback news that even if you're not a BYU fan, I think this will affect the rest of the league, and you should definitely be paying attention to what's going on in Provo with that. Plus, I've got my first Big 12 power rankings of the season because we are on the eve, basically, of Big 12 football season. This time next week, I will be talking to you guys about a Big 12 football game that has been played, not just won by a Big 12 team, but a Big 12 football game that has been played that counts in the league standings, right? K-State and Iowa State, Farmageddon happening in 6 days. Okay, if you're in the Kansas City area, remember, get out to Holiday Distillery. You can watch the game with me and Cole Manbeck from the 3 Mile Podcast. Anyway, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for being here. Very gracious of you to join me tonight. Talk a little college football as we do here. From a Big 12 perspective, you can subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. I am finally done with that anonymous player survey, just in the nick of time for the season. So if you want to read what the players got offered, crazy NIL offers, crazy land offers, you can read all about it in Open for Business if you subscribe at ofbnews.com. So let's see. John Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you'd like to leave me a question or comment there. If you're not watching live, I will kick off the next show with it. And if you're here right now, obviously continue chatting in the chat. Appreciate all you guys. Great to see you. Kim, Robbie, Pacific Northwest, you, Mike, Steve, everybody who's here so far. But if you click the $ below the chat box, you can ensure your question or comment makes it on the show tonight. It will create a super chat. And I appreciate everybody who supports in that way. But huge way to support, like, subscribe, and then subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. None of that costs you a dime. All of that is very, very helpful. Pacific Northwest Ute. I love this. NIL is indeed now name, image, and land. That is correct. Name, image, and land, everybody. Boy. Got a good chuckle out of that one. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. You're not going to believe how ridiculous the playoff format proposals have now become. And we have the Big Ten to officially thank for this last one. The Big Ten has turned into now the guy at the bar that has had way too many. He's been overserved, and you got to go cut him off, take his keys away, make sure he's not spilling anything on the rest of the bar, because we have jumped the shark, ladies and gentlemen. We have absolutely jumped the shark with what we're doing with the college football postseason, how it dominates all the talk about anything. We can't get away from it, even on the eve of the season. It is insane. It's insane what we've tried to do to a beautiful sport, an absolutely beautiful game, first of all, but a beautiful sport. And that's really the difference here. This is not, to quote Brett Yormark, we're not the NFL. This is not the NFL. And we just have TV making Tony Petitti their puppet and continuing to pull these strings that try to make it more and more like the NFL. And it's horrible, guys. Here's the details, the nitty-gritty details from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. New college football playoff formats of 20-plus teams are being explored by leaders in the Big Ten and perhaps the SEC too. Big Ten executives are socializing 24 and 2018 college football playoff brackets that feature as many as 7 automatic qualifiers each for the Big Ten and the SEC, 5 each for the Big 12 and ACC, 2 for the best group of 6 programs, and 2 at-large selections. Those briefed on the idea call it the 7-7-5-5-2-2 model. Is anyone else getting sick of the damn numbers? Is anyone else getting sick of these numbers? 4-4-2-2, 5-11. Now, get ready for 7-7-5-5-2-2. The 7-7-5-5-2-2. Okay, now this is not something that's happening tomorrow. Okay, and as the Big Ten has now learned, and we've all now learned, just because it gets mentioned and thrown out there does not mean that it's going to come to fruition. The Big Ten found that out the hard way with 4-4-2-2, which according to this is now basically dead. Like that's not something the Big Ten is pursuing anymore. So maybe that's an underrated headline in all of this. The Big 12, by planting that 5-11 poison pill, really killed the 4-4-2-2 plan, which I and many others had just taken for granted that that was going to happen at one point in time. One source, according to Ross Dellinger, described it as a, quote, barely baked idea. Barely baked. So we're not even half-baked, guys. We are barely baked. And emphasized it is in no way certain to soon gain approval. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey held a preliminary call on Friday to exchange thoughts on the idea. So here are some things to keep in mind about all this, because I know, okay, John, 24, 28 teams, like what, how does this break down? What would happen? Well, here are some things that would happen. There would be 5 rounds to this playoff. You could play the first 2 rounds on campus, which I saw the number was 20 games on campus then that it would create. It would, in all likelihood, eliminate conference championship games. You would just have too much to schedule if you're doing 5 rounds of the playoff. And speaking of that schedule, and speaking of, like, John, why do they keep doing this? Where does all this keep coming from? Oh, well, TV likes the fact that you would get the playoff starting on a week when the NFL is not playing that Saturday. So, you know, instead of just being like, hey, NFL, can you maybe cut us a little bit of slack? No, we'll just rearrange our playoff to invite half the country so that we can get 7-5 Iowa into the playoff, and we will get to watch 7-5 Iowa play, 7-5 Vandy on a weekend when there's no NFL football in December. So how about that? That I think is supposedly one of the big carrots of this whole idea. Obviously, conferences would determine who finishes where. So this is another thing that, like, I don't love about this. And I know we can debate the importance of conference championship games at this point anyway, because of where we're at with how the conferences are. But when you have these massive Mondo conferences, now you're not going to have a championship game. It's like your champion for a lot of these can be decided just by crazy tiebreakers. And it just, does winning your conference mean anything anymore? We've done so much to bastardize the format of what made the whole sport great. But here we are. I think I hit most of the high notes there. Look, the SEC is mulling this. We haven't heard anything from the SEC, or the SEC at least is just now in the process, it sounds like, of getting these plans thrown their way. Sankey and Petitti have talked a little bit. I'm sure there will be a long discussion period about this. I mean, the reason that the SEC didn't want 4-4-2-2, right, is because the coaches started looking around like, well, hey, first of all, one, I don't want to play this extra play-in game at the end of the year on conference championship weekend, but also if it's 5+11, we can get more teams in. So let's do that. Well, the Big Ten's counter seems to be, all right, well, look, we'll give you 7 teams. You're getting 7 teams. We're all getting 7 teams. We'll be satisfied here. That seems to be the counter. Again, my question would be, at what cost to the overall sanctity of the sport? And that is a thing that these people, I just want you to understand, these people have no regard for this. Tony Petitti has no regard for this. This is a man who operates like he is in the professional sports world. This is not professional sports. These are people who have no idea what makes college sports so great. And when I say these people, and I know that's probably a little too derisive and divisive when we're doing way too much of that these days, but it just, I say that because they're outsiders, and I'm talking about the TV folks too, who are really pushing this through Tony Petitti, like short-sighted money grabs that are doing long-term damage to the sport over and over again. Once again, I will quote Brett Yormark at Big 12 Media Days, quote, "We are not the NFL." And that was a quote that many felt like was directed at Tony Petitti at the time. And that was before we even knew about the 24 and 2018 proposal that was going to be coming. I guess we didn't know about it because Petitti was about to go through with trying to push it through everybody, all his minions, everybody marching in line at Big 10 Media Days, and it did not work very well. Nobody liked it. One argument that I have seen with this is that it will increase the importance on the regular season more than 5+11 would. Josh Pate and others had really hammered that home. Joel Klatt also, hey, 4-4-2-2 would preserve more importance on the regular season because teams would be playing for seeding, which could mean buys and not having to. If you're doing this, yes, you would be playing late in the season for seeding. Where are you going to be in that 1-7? And if you're in the top 4, I think I failed to mention that the top 4 teams in this playoff format would get buys. So you'd be jockeying for buys. Again, NFL sort of idea here. It would be like battling for the 1 seed or whatever in the AFC or the NFC and trying to get a first round bye. That is not, I am sorry, that is not the same urgency as what college football's regular season used to be. Lose one game and it could all be over. Like, that is not that same urgency. And I get it. We're in a 12-team playoff now where it doesn't quite have that same urgency. Yes, but we don't need to say, hey, we're not where we used to be. Let's take it and make it even worse, get it even further away, take it further away from its roots. That's what this is doing. It's just going so unnecessarily far past, beyond anything. It is maddening how the sport just has no centralized leadership doing anything for the good of anybody. Nobody can see beyond the next day, week, or whatever. It's green in their eyes for whatever the next payday is, man. It's so bad. And some of what this feels like to me is just, I have been someone, I'm always monitoring what we're talking about with the playoff and how it's going to affect the Big 12, because the Big 12 and the ACC, for the most part, they've been put in these life or death situations by realignment and all these other bad decisions that have been made for the long-term health of the sport. So you constantly get sucked into the minutia of the argument every day, and it's like you're arguing with a spouse, significant other, or just somebody that you love, and you've been arguing for so long, and the argument goes on and on and on, and you're talking about different things, and you pull different ways, and at a certain point you just stop and you say, wait, we're arguing about my mother-in-law's what? Like, what are we doing? Why are we arguing about this? You take a step back and you're like, this is kind of dumb. Like, why are we here? Why did we get here? And to me, this is a moment where I'm kind of taking a step back and being like, look, I'll analyze it for the Big 12, and I'm going to do that in just a moment. But I just have to take a step back and be like, why are we here? What are we doing? Why on earth are we talking about a 2018 college football playoff? Who wants that besides Eli Drinkwitz? Who wants that? I mean, I had to debate whether or not to do the Eli Drinkwitz segment last time because I was like, this seems like so far-fetched and ridiculous, right? And he was saying 30 teams. I was like, this is so far-fetched and ridiculous. I don't know if it's worth actually covering and actually granting the time of day. Well, I guess it's a good thing I did it, because literally the next time I go live, we're talking about a 2018 playoff that's being pitched by a guy that controls one of the 2 most powerful entities in the sport. Like, arguably the second most powerful man in this sport, which, I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe he's a nice guy, but it's a travesty that Tony Petitti is potentially the second most powerful guy in this sport right now. Going back to the BCS would be eons better, miles better. Like, we just didn't know how good we had it when we were complaining about the BCS. And I'm not saying the BCS was perfect at all. Not at all. I've got beef with the BCS from 1998 and what happened to K-State, okay? I'm not saying the BCS was perfect, but if you just said, hey, we're going to decide 2 teams play for the national championship, other teams like bowls are important, we'll still emphasize other things in the sport, and we'll focus on the regular season, and there's heightened importance on every single regular season game. Like, if we're we're getting to the DNA, man, like taking a microscope and looking in the DNA of college football, that is ingrained in it. One of the things that makes it so awesome is that there has been historically very little margin for error in the regular season, and it places such an importance on those games. And we're just moving further and further, like broadening this thing out. It's like, I feel like we're going to get to a point where it's like, hey, you know what we should do? We should just have this thing that includes everybody. And playing games on campus is great. Like, that's the whole big takeaway from this playoff. Wow, playing games on campus is great. Yeah, imagine that. We should play all these games between all these teams on campus. And then it's like we're winding ourselves back to the regular season. The regular season, man. That's what it is. That's what drives the sport. That's what's always driven the sport. I really like, there were two tweets I saw that I thought were really good on this. So I'm going to pull those up. One of those, courtesy of Stats of War. Excellent work from Parker Fleming. You should definitely be following him if you are not. Share my screen with you on that. There is no amount of playoff teams. No number of playoff teams will fill the hole in your heart. I promise you, Tony Petitti, TV, whoever it is, there is no number of playoff teams that will fill the hole in your heart that apparently you think will be filled by the next cash grab and the next amount of money that you will get for the playoff or better TV ratings or playing on a weekend that the NFL is not playing or whatever it might be. There's also just this PSC highlights. I thought put it pretty well. I mean, can we all agree that the SEC and Big Ten have ruined part of what used to make college football special? This sucks. Now, is it going to happen eventually? It might not. It might not, as we've seen an idea that everybody thinks is going to happen can be killed. That happened with 4-4-2-2. But it's fair to ask the question, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, the fact that we're even having this conversation is evidence that, yes, PSC highlights, the SEC and Big Ten have ruined a part of what used to make college football special. Realignment has been a huge part of that. We've gotten ourselves into this just twisted pretzel of like, look, I mean, obviously I still enjoy the sport. My general philosophy on this has always been, I may not be happy about the way it is, but I can't change that reality. There's nothing I can do sitting where I'm at right now. Nobody is making me commissioner. So I'm going to just adapt and try and enjoy it the most that I can and deal with what the reality is. But that doesn't mean I can't point out how ridiculous all of this is, because make no mistake, it is absolutely ridiculous that this is a suggestion, that this is where we're at, that this is something being considered. Like, just stick with the 12-team playoff, man. What? We don't need to do this. You don't have to do this. That's another thing I've seen a lot. Like, I think people who are not as ingrained in the day-to-day minutia of all this, I've seen a lot of like, well, wait, we just got to 12. Why are we? I mean, frankly, that's a great question. I mean, the reason we're not just sticking to 12 is because TV, dollar signs. Okay. Now I will steal a quote from Mark Mangino, but tweak it a little bit. TV and dollar signs. TV and dollar signs. Or if you want to do TP for Tony Petitti and dollar signs, TP, TV, and dollar signs. That's why we're here. That is why, because the Big Ten has the biggest conference of anybody, and so they need more teams. They want more. It's horrible. David, what's up, David? Dave, this is good. You guys are funny today, man. David says, I think they were baked when they came up with this. Other divisions have massive playoffs, but not guaranteed spots. Not that I know of. I think they were baked when they came up with this. I love that, David. Thank you so much. I mean, I think so. I get the point that you're making. The problem is I don't think they're baked at all. I think they know exactly what they're doing, but exactly what they're doing is going for what is most beneficial in the short term and what is not going to preserve this thing long term, man. You just I feel like it's a lot like, hey, we have a short-term need to go cut down a bunch of rainforests for something. And it's like, okay, but there are a finite amount of resources here. And at some point you will have done too much and there's no turning back. And that's what we're getting to. It's just, we're getting there a lot faster in college football and college sports than we are with like the natural resources of the world. And at some point you can't go back. You will have depleted everything. And for what? You didn't have to. You know, in this case for college football, you didn't have to. You just didn't have to. anyway, David, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Okay, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm grateful that you all are here, even if it's a bit frustrating that we're having this conversation 6 days before the college football season actually kicks off. And remember, Big 12 fans, not just K-State, Iowa State, but we get KU Fresno on that week 0 Saturday as well at 5 o'clock, opening up the new stadium that Kansas has. So look, and that KU, I think the line dropped from like 14 to 12, depending on where you're looking at. And that could be a competitive game that we get between Kansas and Fresno. I'm just saying, a couple great games to watch for week 0. This is way better than what was I watching last year? I mean, obviously I watched Georgia Tech, Florida State, but there was one of those games at night. I feel like SMU. Did SMU play week 0 last year? I was watching Preston Stone, I think, play quarterback against Hawaii or something like that. I don't know. It's a lot better this year for Big 12 fans. So congrats on making it through the last weekend without what I see, college football or college basketball through April. We're going to have at least college football or college basketball through April every single weekend. Okay. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. We're going to hear from my friends at SeatGeek in just a moment. I've got a little clarification for you on that. But man, all right, the Big Ten is desperately trying to rip away at the fabric of the sport with a ridiculous proposal of 24 or 28 teams in the college football playoff. But what does it mean for the Big 12? Okay, obviously, very easy to see. Does not take a rocket scientist to see. It would not be a good thing for the sport, but what does this mean for the Big 12 specifically? To me, it's another temptation. And much like 4-4-2-2 was a temptation, this is an even sweeter temptation for the Big 12. And it's one the Big 12 can't afford to fall into. You cannot fall in this trap, even if you would look at it and say, hey, we're actually pulling closer to the Big 10 and the SEC. All right. So best way to characterize that first plan, the 4-4-2-2 plan, 4 auto bids for the Big 10 and SEC, 2 each for the Big 12 and ACC. It was a total trap, man. It was a trap that was set out there for the Big 12 and the ACC to be like, oh, wait, this would be great. If we go 5+11 or whatever other format, we're going to get smoked every year. There's no way we'll be getting multiple teams in every year. So why would we not just sign up to go ahead and guarantee that we're going to get multiple teams in every year? Of course we would do that. But then you do that and you're signing on the dotted line. We are inferior. We are an inferior conference. We are half of what the Big Ten is. We are half of what the SEC is. It kills negotiating power. It kills your ceiling. It's basically a non-starter. And thankfully, the Big Ten or the Big 12 and the ACC rather were not enticed by that trap and stood their ground and said, no. We're not going to do that. Felt to me kind of like, those timeshare meetings that they'll have. And they're like, hey, we'll give you a free excursion for the day. And you can come eat this nice meal at a nice hotel. Yeah, but then you're going to get locked into a timeshare. It's not worth it. It's a nice, shiny, fancy-looking trap, but you don't want to get locked into that timeshare, my friend. That's what it was. Well, now Big Ten wants to expand this, right? And so 24 or 28, well, how many would that mean for the Big 12 and the ACC then? I know that's your first question. The SEC apparently has even mulled a 32-team playoff at one point. That was a part of this reporting. What happens? Well, you might get 7. You might get 17, or rather 5 teams in. 5. So forget 2, you might get 5. 7, 7, 5, 5, 2, 2. Well, okay, let's do some math here. Guys, I tell you all the time, I got a communications degree from a state school, okay? Go Cats. But I'm not like a Harvard math major, but I can do a little bit of math. And when you're at 2 versus 4, you've got 50% less teams, right? You've also got 50% as many teams. If you have 5 to their 7, you've got 71% as many teams. 71% is greater than 50. So this proposal, when I say that it's the same trap, but it's even a little bit sweeter, I say it because of that. You're now 71% of the SEC and Big Ten versus 50% of the SEC and Big Ten. So if this is the apple, don't bite the apple. All right, that apple looked pretty good before. Well, now dunk it in caramel. Here's a caramel apple. Are you going to bite the caramel apple here? That's the trap. That's the temptation. but you can't do it. You can't do it because fundamentally what is happening here is the exact same thing. Like this, what the Big Ten has tried to do is solve for the SEC, which, I mean, obviously that's the bigger problem for them. How do we get the SEC on board? And what they're trying to do is assuage the SEC and be like, look, you'll get 7 in. Fine. Like, stop worrying about whether you're going to get 5, 6, or 7 or whatever. You'll get 7 in every year. Don't worry about it. But it doesn't satisfy the Big 12 or the ACC, who still in this format, even though it's 71% now of those leagues instead of 50, still would be signing on the dotted line that we are an inferior conference. It is codifying inferiority, or shout out to Gooch Boring on Twitter. I liked this. Mandated inferiority. Mandated inferiority is what this would be. And so I certainly don't expect this to move the needle with Brett Yormark at all, considering the stand that he's already taken and not only doubling down, but triple and quadrupling down on the 5+11 plan. Like, he does not seem to be one that's going to budge. I certainly wouldn't expect Jim Phillips to budge at this point with where they're at, but what it will obviously come down to is what does the SEC want? Does the SEC want to get on board with this and then push it forward? Would this be, I mean, I think another interesting question here is, would this be something that Big 12 and ACC folks would legitimately like threaten legal action over? Because that was mentioned, was at least mentioned in some of the Ross Dellinger reporting about 4422 is like, hey, if they're going to do this, if they're going to jam this through, we know what's in the contract. And well, yes, they have the ultimate decision-making power. They also have to, and I'm forgetting right now, I should have this pulled up. I apologize. The specific language, how it's worded in the contract, but they have to give like appropriate input to everybody else. And so the threat there was, well, hey, if you just try and slam 4422 through, we will sue. We're going to threaten legal action on this and say that you didn't give us our full bit of input. Now, maybe it's a tougher case since 4422 is dead basically, and they're going to a different one that gives you a little bit more here. Probably a tougher legal case, but I don't know. Would this be one where that starts popping up again? I have no idea. But just to get the basics here, even if you have 5 versus their 7, 71% versus 50%, it does not change the fundamental reason that the Big 12 was pushing back on 4422 and would prefer 511. So I do not expect this to change or be pushed forward by the Big 12. If you are curious, okay, well, what would that have meant for the Big 12? And John, you say this is a temptation. I mean, there are some that definitely are very vehemently or were vehemently even on board with 4422 that are Big 12 fans. I think this actually this will underscore the point to me of like why it is tempting. Okay, let's just look at who would have made the playoff last year from the Big 12 if you had 5. Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU, Colorado, Baylor in your playoff. Okay, I mean, that would be pretty fun to see which of those teams could shake it up, win some games, do some damage, especially when I went through the other conferences and I tried to pull like a kind of a pool of teams that you might be seeing in that first or second round. If it's Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU, Colorado, Baylor playing like Illinois, Indiana, LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Louisville, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, even Duke could have. I don't know how the tiebreakers broke in the ACC. Duke could have been in there. If those are the types of teams that you're playing, like you don't want to see the Big 12 get a crack at those teams with like BYU. Last year's BYU would have been great to see that happen. So that is tempting. But again, short-term versus long-term. You got to have the long-term discipline. The Big 12 and the ACC, somewhat by necessity, have more of that. Because I'm not naive enough to say, hey, if the Big 10 and the ACC were in the position of the Big 10 and the SEC right now, they wouldn't be doing the same thing. I mean, I get it. It's those in power being governed by greed because there's nobody to govern for the greater good. But that gives you a little bit of idea of like what this would mean. And the ultimate portion of this, to just bring it back out, branch back out to the big, broad picture here. Do we need to see Louisville, Baylor in the college football playoff? And I don't say that to disparage Baylor. They were batted down Hail Mary away from the Big 12 championship game last year, and I have picked them to compete for the Big 12 championship this year. But last year's Baylor team against Louisville or Syracuse, Colorado. Nice season for Colorado, but I don't think anyone's really clamoring for like Syracuse, Colorado in the college football playoff. Like we don't really need that, man. We don't really need that. And that's the ultimate point here with everything. I'm trying to catch up on the chat here a little bit. We've got Neil Brown Beers. What's up, Neil Brown Beers? Neil Brown Beers says, going to see that newly renovated Kansas Stadium week 4 when West Virginia's going there. Any recommendations you or anyone else has for Lawrence is welcome. Well, hopefully Alan is watching, and we can get some recommendations from Alan later on. But I've been to Lawrence plenty of times for plenty of games. My sister also went to Kansas. The burger stand is like my favorite. That's been my favorite place lately to eat. If you're looking for like a great burger, Mass Street. If you're looking for like the bar scene, Mass Street is definitely a cool spot to go check out. Lots of stuff that you'll find there. The Wheel, I think that's Alan's spot, right? Alan always is hanging out at the Wheel. That's one of the classic places. Depending on how old you are, if you're a college kid, check out the Hawk. That's what we were always trying to do when I was in school. But yeah, I would say like the Wheel, Mass Street, and then I really like the burger stand in Lawrence for a great burger there. So hopefully that helps get you started a little bit. Neil Brown Beers. You're also, keep in mind, Neil Brown Beers, you're not too far from Kansas City. You're like I don't know, from downtown. I mean, you're like a 35, 40 minute, probably like a 40-minute drive from the Kansas City metro area. Might take you more like an hour to get downtown, but you could definitely pull that off too if you wanted to hang out in Kansas City. So there you go. Okay. Let's see. Someone said they tried to drop a joke. Oh, Bracket Cat tried to send me a super chat with the joke. All right, let me see what the joke was, Bracket Cat. I don't see it in the rest of the chat. If you have the joke, Bracket Cat, send it in there, and I will try to bring it up anyway, because you guys have been. That's the rest of the chat earning it for you, because the rest of the chat's been funny as hell so far tonight. Okay, gotta say hello to my friends from SeatGeek here. I had some people messaging me like, "Hey, this isn't working. The code isn't working." The code, I just want to clarify. This code Kurtz SeatGeek. If you're getting tickets for some football games coming up. If it is your first time using SeatGeek, it will get you 20% off or $20 off your tickets. But as your first time using SeatGeek, you can get $20. God, I'm just screwing this thing up. Can you tell it's the first time I've had like a legit sponsor on here, guys? All right, I'm working through this. $20 off of your first SeatGeek order. Okay, let's let recorded me try and do a little bit better job than what I just bungled through there. Football season is here, guys, and that means we all need to find good deals on tickets. All right, and the best place to do that is SeatGeek. I have to give a huge shout out to SeatGeek, the sponsor of today's video. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek. So obviously college football is covered, but if you're a music guy like me, it's perfect for concerts. I'm buying a ton of concert tickets this fall. And I tell you what, I have my eye on those Holy War tickets for BYU and Utah coming up as well. And man, all you got to do is open up the app. It's perfect. You can go check what's going on here, find the green dots in the seat. That means they're good deals. Red dots, maybe not so much, but SeatGeek will help you find the best deals on seats depending on where it is that you are trying to sit. They're each rated on a scale of 1 to 10. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And you guys know I'm here for you. I've got a code for you. Code Kurtz gets you $20 off your tickets. Again, that's code Kurtz for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase with promo code Kurtz. Make sure you just click the link in the description to download the app and have that code on hand and ready to go. Guys, I'm here to help you out. I've got your back. Hit up my friends at SeatGeek. You heard the man. SeatGeek, pretty easy. $20 off your first order if it's your first time using SeatGeek with promo code Kurtz. Okay. All right, I see Neil Brown Beers following up here. I normally like to stay around campus. Do have an Airbnb in Lawrence, but we'll be in. Oh, perfect. All right, perfect. Perfect. You're good. Hey, Brown's attempt to play football. Shador Sanders, my friend. Shador Sanders. Neil Brown Beers. It's going to be okay. I know not everybody watching is a BYU fan, but even if you're not a BYU fan specifically, you're just a Big 12 fan, right? Many of you are. The latest BYU development is a good thing for you. Okay, so keep listening. All right. Stick with me on this one. It certainly looks like BYU has somebody who has found the inside track to the starting quarterback job. We all know about the Jake Retzloff story at this point, right? He's at Tulane. Legal action that was there and then not there is basically what pushed him out. It turns out to, in the end, be an honor code violation that became exposed in public that ousted Jake Retzloff from BYU. But in comes a quarterback battle. It was a three-way QB battle for the Cougars. Now, Bear Bachmeier, to me, was always the sexiest name in this competition because he's the guy that has the real accolades, the pedigree, if you will, from the recruiting world, where he had, Georgia, Notre Dame, major offers, right? A lot of people wanted Bear Bachmeier to come play quarterback for him. He goes to Stanford, doesn't even make it a full semester, transfers to BYU, and there he is, but he's a true freshman. All right. McKay Hillstead from Utah State, Trayson Bourget, a transfer from Western Michigan, were the other two competitors for the job. I always felt like, and it seemed obvious to me that like this was probably going to come down to Hillstead and Bachmeier. At least you figured Hillstead was going to be in there. McKay Hillstead seemed like the best mix Utah State transfer of experience and some upside. Bourget, I don't think offered nearly the upside that either of these other two candidates did. And you're looking at this, and a couple reasons you should care as a Big 12 fan I will get to later on, but one is just simply, hey man, BYU's roster, if they have a quarterback who is good this year, I mean, they're good enough to win the conference. Like that's absolutely a conference championship contending roster if the quarterback play is good. And you can even debate with me whether or not the quarterback play was good last year. I mean, I think it was like fine, above average, maybe. But there were times where Jake Retzloff left a lot to be desired. And so my take on this all along has been like, hey, there may be a higher ceiling for this BYU team now. I think there's a much lower floor, but there might be a higher ceiling for this BYU team now. Well, we got an update on the quarterback job. And to me, it was, I love this. I was like, sign me up for this. Okay. So Aaron Roderick, who's the offensive coordinator at BYU, said the job is basically down to Bear Bachmeier, true freshman Stanford transfer, and Utah State transfer McKay Hillstead. Now, I was reading the Deseret News, does a great job as always, and they said the leader as the race hits the home stretch might have been considered a dark horse when the Derby began, freshman Bear Bachmeier. Roderick said Bachmeier took the majority of first-team reps on Tuesday, while Utah State transfer McKay Hillstead got some as well. On threes, Pete Nakos, at one point, he put out this week, Bear Bachmeier, his wording was, Bear Bachmeier is trending to be the guy who wins the job. So look, I love this, man. I love this for a number of reasons. One, it's just simply more interesting. It's the most interesting story. Here's a really highly touted freshman that BYU was able to get in the program. Let's see him play right away. Throw him into the fire, man. Let's see what happens. The guy wears number 47. That's awesome. Let's go see a quarterback rocking number 47. And it's not like this is just some into the bench Joe Schmo. He could have gone and played at a high level in the SEC, could have played at Alabama, Oregon, Notre Dame, all of these places, right? Chooses to go to BYU and rock number 47. As an outsider with no dog in the fight, like I want to see the guy with the recruiting pedigree go out there. But why I say this is important really to the Big 12 as a whole is like, well, first of all, BYU is one of the flagship brands really of the Big 12, just because of the national fan base that they have, the resources that they have. Like BYU is a big deal. They're one of two schools in the league that's won a national championship before. BYU is a brand, and you really want them, if you're a Big 12 fan, to be important, to be a player, and to continue having seasons like they had last year. This, I think, would elevate their ceiling considerably, but not only just this year, for the next couple of years. Like if we're talking about BYU as a program over the next couple of years, this is the biggest ceiling elevator that you could throw into the mix. Even if you do take a bit of a hit this year, this elevates the ceiling for like 26 and 27, because Ryder Lyons is going to do, like, you got to wait on Ryder Lyons, right? He's going to go do a 1-year mission. And then by the time he gets in, like it may take him a little bit of time. If you've already gotten Bear Bachmeier this season under his belt, that's just going to accelerate that growth a ton. You know, I mean, look at a guy like Avery Johnson last year. First year as a starter, he wasn't a true freshman. So Bear Bachmeier a little bit younger, but he had to last year. Well, it was a pretty good season, and K-State won 9 games. It was definitely a, hey, get your feet under you kind of season as a starting quarterback. It's probably going to take that, even if you are somebody that Alabama, Oregon, and Notre Dame wanted and offered a scholarship. So get him up to speed, elevate the ceiling of that program over the next few years. This will be the dilemma, and the Deseret News confirmed this. I'm going to read straight from the Deseret News article about this job. Multiple sources have told the Deseret News that the dilemma coaches face is this. Hillstead is the safe choice and knows the offense much better, allowing Roderick to open up the playbook almost as much as he did last year with Jake Retzlaff. Whereas Bachmeier is more of a high-risk, high-reward type of proposition right now, but that high reward might not come until next year and if he has a full season under his belt. So, yeah, essentially saying the same thing that I was just saying. Higher ceiling, but it could be that it comes next year. Could be that it comes 2 years from now. But if you're really trying to elevate as a program, I mean, to me, that's the way I would prefer to see it go. I'm not going to blame them if they go with McKay Hillstead and say, hey, kid's not quite ready. You know, we saw what happened with a talented freshman at Utah last year, kind of got chewed up and spit out at times. We should be a little bit more careful with this. Let's not do that. I get it. Again, especially because the rest of the roster is good and looks ready to win right away. So I understand the argument for, hey, just get the guy who knows the offense, can distribute the ball better, be safer, and let the rest of the roster take over. But I want to see guys swinging for the fences, right? I mean, the baseball analogy is, did you like baseball in the 70s and 80s, like an era defined by contact, athleticism, guys taking the extra bag? Or did you like the steroid era that I grew up with? Did you like the steroid era where Mark McGuire and Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa are up there swinging for the damn fences every time they get up to the plate? And I mean, I was alive for 4 months of the 80s. Okay. So I don't know what that era of baseball was like to be around for, but I do know how fun it was to watch those guys hitting home runs, and I'll take swinging for the fences. I'll take swinging for the fences. The Big 12 right now is a league that's defined by quarterback play. I think most would tell you it's the best quarterback league in the country on paper heading into the season. Why not add another really highly touted freshman that a ton of the big boys wanted into the mix this year playing QB? I'm here for that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with this. But I had heard it sounded like the smoke, like a week and a half ago was starting to be like, hey, Bear Bachmeier may actually be the dude here. And I'm glad to see some confirmation on that. And according to Kalani Sitake and Aaron Roderick, we may not have to wait very long to get that answer. They said they want an answer on a starter sooner rather than later, and that they'll let everybody know. They're not going to try and keep it a secret like last year with Jake Retzlaff and Gary Bohannon. So here for that. I am here for that. All right. Securities Attorney HB, thank you for being here. Securities Attorney HB. I've missed a bunch of your episodes. Can you briefly recap why rankings experts are high on the Utah Utes? I don't get it. They have a great QB from the portal, but didn't they lose lots of talent in the portal? Well, this is kind of a perfect lead into the last segment tonight, which is going to be me unveiling my first set of Big 12 power rankings for the year. I think the general idea is, one, they played in a bunch of close games. They were 1-5, I believe, in one-score games last year. They lost a bunch of really close games, and that was with all the quarterback injury luck that they had, which was obviously terrible. And so the thought is, well, they always have a great defense. That's not going anywhere. And they got a quarterback out of the portal that everybody really likes in Devin Dampier. And so, hey, as long as their quarterback injury luck is not just wretched like it was last year, defense is going to be good. Surely some of that close game luck will turn around too, especially if you got a more veteran quarterback. I think that's basically the formula and why a lot of people are high on Utah. Now, some aren't. I have seen some top 25s that don't include them. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I think if you are looking for a progression candidate, Utah is about as good as any in the Big 12 to make a big jump this year because of the pedigree of the program, the track record of Kyle Whittingham, the track record of Morgan Scalley's defenses, and Devin Dampier, a bit of a wild card. And look, I've gone from being way super high on Utah to maybe coming back a little bit, and I'll explain that in a moment. But I think they are going to be much, much better, much better. So I hope that answers your question, Securities Attorney HB. I hope that does. Pacific Northwest Ute. Drawing from Arizona's slogan and Bachmeier trending in the QB lead, BYU's opponents will be well served to say bear down. That was the joke. Yeah, that was the joke from last time. Did you make that last time? They'll be well served to say bear down. Bear Bachmeier down. Wow. Hashtag, look at that. Hashtag Kurtz for commissioner. Pacific Northwest Ute. That is excellent. If you guys could start that for me, get that rolling out there on Twitter, on the interwebs, wherever it is that you want to post it. Hashtag Kurtz for commissioner. That would be great. That would be great. Thank you, Pacific Northwest Ute. Oh, David. Okay. I keep saying there are two teams with championships. TCU would be the third. Colorado is the other that I was referencing there. And I know that like Oklahoma State tries to claim like 1939 or something. I'm going to abstain from that. I know there was a lot of controversy when they tried to put that on the stadium. I did know that TCU had some from long, long ago. Now, is there any controversy about that, or like why? Because I hear other people say it too, that there are two teams that have won conference titles. Anyway, I will start saying three. I will include TCU in that. Thank you, David, for the correction on that. But yeah, Colorado with 91. I should know this. Championship football. 1990. My bad. All right, Bill McCartney, 1990 for Colorado, 84 for BYU, and then 35-38 for TCU. Okay. Yes, our friends at UCF, 2017. I really should do that. I loved that so much. I loved how UCF did that and milked that and turned that into a big thing so much in 2017 that I probably should reward them by adding that as a national champ. 2017 Natty, baby. That's awesome. Thank you, John. Thank you, John, for the reminder on that. All right. You guys ready for the first power rankings, the initial Big 12 power rankings of the season? I'm going to give this disclaimer before I start. We'll go 16-1. Before I start, I'm doing this predominantly based on this is what I think of the team in a vacuum. So I'm not really taking into account like schedule on this one. Or as we get into the season, I reserve the right to be I'm not going to be as stringent as like, a Josh Pate who will say, hey, this is a rating, not a ranking. Because a ranking is going to be more resume based. A rating is like how strong I think this team is. And even if they have like some close losses, I may have them above somebody that you think is crazy because I'm not doing this based on resume. That is more what I'm going for here. For instance, right now, I'm not factoring in schedule, right? I'm not factoring in schedule, which is a real fool's errand anyway. We probably put too much into that at this time of year. See what happened with the Big 12 standings last season. But with that disclaimer out of the way, let's start with number 16. I am sorry, Brent Brennan. I'm sorry, Arizona Wildcats. I have Arizona at 16. I just don't feel good about the direction that program's going in, what happened in the offseason, losing some key guys to Washington. I like Noah Fafita, but they got to be a lot better. Coordinator change, that can hopefully help. But I'm going Arizona at 16. UCF and West Virginia are at 15 and 14. Oklahoma State, I could kind of lump into at 13 in the same category where it's just like there's so much new. It's a lot of turnover on those rosters, especially like West Virginia, UCF, man. I mean, I don't know what to expect. And I know West Virginia fans are optimistic. And I'm much more optimistic on the long-term prognosis of Rich Rod at West Virginia than I was when the hire first happened. I just think it's asking an awful lot to turn it around and like be in, some of the stuff I've seen, like maybe be in contention. Guys, That's a lot of roster to turn over. I'd have to go back and check the numbers on Arizona State, but at least like Kenny Dillingham was in year 2 of the program. Like I think it's a little bit, if you want to point toward that turnaround, I think it's a little bit different because Dillingham had been there year 1. But just give Rich Rod, really, this is a plea for West Virginia fans to give Rich Rod time. Give Rich Rod time there. I'm going Oklahoma State 13, top of that group, literally just because Mike Gundy trust in his career. I don't know how much of that I still have left, but there's enough that I'll put him at the top of that group. Number 12, I've got Houston. I think there's a chance by the end of the year we could be looking at Houston like in the top 8 or 9, but I'm going to be conservative with Houston and stick them at number 12. A lot of that, like how healthy can Connor Wegman stay at quarterback, and how good actually is Connor Wegman if he is healthy. I mean, I still think we don't fully know what he will be as a quarterback. So that's going to tell a lot of what happens with the Houston season. Cincinnati, I know there's some renewed optimism on Cincinnati. I have them at 11. Scott Satterfield does not strike a lot of confidence in me, but I think Brendan Sorsby is a pretty good quarterback. And I know this is where, again, I have to separate it from what I'm doing. I know a lot of people look at the schedule and feel like that's a favorable aspect for Cincinnati. I'm not really factoring that in here. I've got Colorado at number 10. Now, I could see Colorado making me look a little bit silly once again. I had them as a 6 or 7 win team last year. They won 9 games. Could be the same sort of deal, especially because like I think Robert Livingston legitimately deserves a lot of credit as a very good defensive coordinator that quietly did a great job last year because not many people were paying attention to the defense when Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter were on the offense. Colorado's a better, like I said this a bunch last year. They started to have the signs of like building an actual program. I think the quarterback thing, I really think Shedeur is a huge loss, and it will take some time to integrate a new quarterback no matter who it's going to be. BYU at number 9. Were it not for the quarterback, BYU could definitely be a couple of spots higher. As much as I love Bear Bachmeier, I love the talent there. As I said, that can also lower your floor for this year while improving the ceiling for the future of the program. And I've got Kansas at number 8, just above BYU, which to me is a lot about like that's Lance Leipold trust. And not that I don't think Kalani Sitake is a good coach, but I mean, seeing it up close and personal, the job Leipold has done is phenomenal, even if they did have a bit of a step back last year. They took care of what I think was a big part of the problem early on in the year, and they do not have the same offensive coordinator. So I think that will help. Kansas, though, only 12th in the league in returning production, lost so much of receiver and defensive back. That's what's holding them back to me from being higher on this list. Utah, number 7. There was probably a time in the offseason, like very early on in the spring, when I was thinking like, man, I could have Utah like in the top 3 or 4. I've cooled just a bit on that. And really it's thinking about Devin Dampier, who was, I think it was 12 touchdowns, 12 picks last year. And that was at New Mexico, right? That's in the Mountain West. This is the Big 12. Now I'm doing my Dan Hawkins. This is Big 12. This is the Big 12. Different deal. I think they will run him a lot. I think he's a fabulous runner, a fabulous athlete, but Utah knows all about quarterback injuries. Like, will he stay healthy doing that? How does that hold up over the course of a season? And I know with Isaac Wilson still there, they've got a little bit more backup at QB, but he'll be a year older. It's not going to be as bad as last year. To me, it still feels like 8-4-ish for Utah. TCU, I'm going number 6. I think Utah is a much better coach. Nothing against Sonny Dykes. Yes, I understand he coached in a national championship game. I would take Kyle Whittingham every day of the week and Sunday over Sonny Dykes as my coach, but I do think TCU has a better roster and a roster that I would trust more. Trust Hoover more than Dampier at quarterback for sure. Texas Tech is coming in at number 5. If we were going just based on like sheer talent, if you're going on NFL talent, certainly if you're going on, I know Tech's been touting the amount of guys on the Senior Bowl watch list. Texas Tech would be probably number 1 in the league. I wonder about quarterback. I wonder a little bit about head coach, and I wonder about cohesion when you're incorporating as many new guys as you are out of the portal. So I'm leaving Texas Tech at number 5. I would also mention one thing that gives me some pause with Tech. They were 6-1 in one-score games last year. That could bring you back down to earth if that axis starts to tilt a little bit the other way. But hey, if you have better players, it won't matter. Maybe you won't be in as many close games. K-State at number 4, Iowa State at number 3. Anybody who's listened to the 3 Ma podcast is pretty aware of my stance on that. It's basically just like, hey, I think both teams are pretty good. I need to see it from Avery Johnson. I have seen more from Rocco Becht to this point in his career. Yes, throwing to 2 NFL wideouts who are gone. But the bottom line to me is Iowa State's won this game for the last 5 years. Like, Matt Campbell has had K-State's number. And until I see K-State actually do it, I'll take that game as the difference between both of those teams this year in the standings. And I'll have Iowa State at 3. And then Baylor and Arizona State are still my 2-1. That is still my Big 12 championship game. Okay. I love Baylor. I love the offense. They were already that close. You knocked down a pass in Boulder. You're playing for a Big 12 championship last year. Sawyer Robertson is a total stud. Dawson Pendergrass injury, yes, I do think is a big deal, especially like Baylor really needs that running game to hum. Bryson Washington is awesome. They've got the MVP of the Army All-American game coming in at running back too. Maybe just speeds up that timeline a bit. I think Baylor's defense will continue to improve. Even if it's not great, I think Dave Aranda is a good enough defensive mind to get them at least closer to average this year. I think that'll help them take a step forward. And then Arizona State, look, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Returning champs, a lot coming back, returning quarterback. Kenny Dillingham appears to be a star as a head coach. And as crazy as this is, because yes, they lost Cam Scadaboo, who had 40%, it was like 39% of the offensive yardage. They somehow have 79% of their overall production returning, according to Bill Connolly's S&P Plus on ESPN. So they're basically what you're looking at is, yes, they lost Cam Scadaboo, but they maintained almost everything else. And that will be massive for Arizona State this year. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt from me in starting in the number 1, the pole position of the initial Big 12 power rankings. So there you go. There you go. There's the first Big 12 power rankings of the season. Let's see if anyone offered any thoughts on that while we were rolling through here. Bracket Cat says, here's the $5 anyway, John. Long-time listener, first-time super chatter. You deserve it. No idea why YouTube is censoring. Oh, they were censoring the joke. Damn. Okay. Sorry about that, Bracket Cat, but I appreciate your support. Genuinely. Thank you. Always love seeing you here in the chat. I look forward to this email. Now this is building up some suspense on this email so I can see what the joke is. Thank you, Bracket Cat. Thank you. Alan, what's up, Alan? Alan says, John flying back from class reunion today in Kansas airport filled with K-State fans going to Ireland. Yeah, I've been, a little bit of FOMO, I would say, seeing some K-Staters I know that are already out there. Told them I was a KU alum pulling for K-State to win. Want K-State at 6-0 when they lose at KU. West Virginia fan, go to the wheel. What did I tell you guys? I told you that Alan would say go to the wheel. I know you too well, my friend. Thank you, Alan, for being here. Safe travels if you're still en route getting back. And thank you for the support for Farmageddon. And I hope you have a great time opening up. Speaking of the wheel, opening up the wheel for another football season and opening up that new stadium coming up this weekend. Pacific Northwest Ute, Wits 13-0, 2008 Utes claimed a national title too, although not as loudly as Urban's 2004 undefeated season, which probably helped him land the Gator job. Oh, see, not as loud. Neither of them must have been as loudly as UCF. Now that's a testament to UCF. We know UCF does not like to be shy about anything, and UCF was beating that down all the way. UCF also, they put it on the stadium, right? It's on the stage now on the bounce house. UCF 2017. You got to put it on the stadium, I guess, is the point. Yeah, 2017 national champions banner. You got to put it on the stadium if you really want to claim it, Pacific Northwest Ute. That's also Oklahoma State. We talk about Oklahoma State. They threw the old one on there. You got to do it. You got to do it. Got to do it. So that would be my advice. I know Kyle Whittingham's got time before he retires. He can still do that retroactively. And that I think is the key, Pacific Northwest Ute. That is the key. Mitchell, what's up, Mitchell? Sleeping way too much on BYU having the best D in the conference. IMO. Hey, I very well could be. I think it's just the quarterback is such an important position. I got to see what that's going to look like before I get my bearings with BYU and what they're going to be. I think this is early in the offseason. I thought, well, they're a bit of a regression candidate because of close wins last year, and everybody, the whole year was like, oh, they've been, but really it wasn't. I went back and looked at the numbers, and it was like, I think we get fixated on the Oklahoma State game, being like, hey, kind of got away with one there, which they did. But I don't think this was not like hey, Texas Tech was 6-1 in one-score games. So I talked myself out of that. Look, BYU's got a really good ride. I don't even think it's just the defense. I think there's a lot to like about what else is there on offense. I mean, I love Chase Roberts, but it's the quarterback can just introduce such a huge fluctuation in what the team is actually going to be this year. And so because of that, because everything is so tight, that's just a differentiator when like all these teams are so bunched up and so tight. Like once we start getting into Texas Tech, TCU, Utah, Kansas, BYU, it's really hard. I mean, I think the margins are very thin in between there into like, who do you move up and who do you move down based on? So if I know that one team is replacing a new starting quarterback and it was a sudden change and it happened this late in the offseason, that's kind of the deciding factor there. I mean, I think BYU with Jake Retzlaff, probably at 6, probably would have them at 6. So in my eyes, it drops them like 3 spots, the quarterback uncertainty. But I've also acknowledged opens up a higher ceiling while the floor became lower. So it's not any hate. It's definitely not any hate. And I could be very wrong by the time this is done. But thank you, Mitchell. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for sticking up for your Cougs. Kim, what's up, Kim? Respect for you picking ISU over your Cats. Kim, Iowa State has tormented me over the last 5 years because even the one game that K-State won in that time span in 2022 in Ames against a 4-win Iowa State team, and that was the year K-State won the Big 12 championship. Even in that game, K-State won by 1 single point. K-State won because Xavier Hutchinson, who was Iowa State's best offensive player, dropped a pass that he should have caught that would have set up a field goal opportunity for Iowa State to win the game. And in that game, Malik Knowles had like a 70-yard touchdown catch where he was just kind of casually jogging it in and got the ball punched out at the goal line into the end zone that turned into a touchback. That game was hell. I hated it until the final gun. I hated it. So it's not been fun. It's not been fun the last 5 years. I'm just being realistic, man. I gotta call it like I see it. So thank you for your respect, my friend. David, what's up, David? How important is the result of TCU UNC? Well, I would sure like to have the Big 12 get the spotlight of ruining Bill Belichick's debut. Not that, no matter what happens, story of that game, the reaction to that game, what they'll be talking about on First Take is not like, oh, hey, great outing by Josh Hoover. What could TCU? That's not what it's going to be. Everybody will just be talking about North Carolina, but it would still be a nice look for the conference to get that win and get that pub. You're kind of pitted against the ACC right now, right? And North Carolina is one of the big crown jewels of realignment. Be a good idea to go ahead and win that game. And I think for TCU, like you had a very similar scenario with Colorado a couple of years ago, and that set the tone for the season. That set the tone for a 5-7 season that was obviously disappointing. So tone setter, I think it's important. How important is it like for the Big 12 as a whole? I don't think it's nearly as important as like the games against SEC and Big Ten competition. And in fact, I would even say my gut is telling me I would say it's the second most important non-conference game that TCU is playing. To me, it just feels like, speaking of like kind of being in your dome a little bit, being in your head, I think TCU needs to get the win over SMU. You got it. That game last year, I think, was so damaging to the perception of TCU because everybody kind of counted TCU out at that point. Like, all right, well, man, you can't get nearly 60 balled by SMU and look that sloppy in all 3 phases doing it. Like, that's okay. You're not going to be a good team. And nobody thought SMU was that great at that point in the year either. So it really affected, I think, the perception of TCU for the entire season last year. You can't have that happen again. And now SMU is a team that everybody knows made the playoff last year, and there's potential playoff expectations for them again. So I don't even think it's the most important game on TCU's non-conference schedule, but you can definitely milk some good publicity out of it for the Big 12. Kim, what's up, Kim? My Sunday evening wouldn't have been complete without your weekly dig at Tech. What did I say about Tech? What did I say? I feel like I was pretty fair with the Tech analysis. I didn't mention the 2009 thing. I didn't mention 2009. I just said, I think I said quarterback and head coach are where my question marks are with the ceiling of Texas Tech, along with, building the roster and making the roster fit. But I'm also explaining that as I have Texas Tech above TCU, Utah, and BYU, who I think I've been challenged by people on all three of those schools in this chat on why I have them low. So being in the top 5, man, I don't think that's a bad spot to be. I guess I said the 6-1 one-score game thing. All right, fair enough. I dropped in the 6-1 one-score game stat there for Texas Tech. But I also said, Kim, you can overcome it if the players are good enough, and Tech's got the talent there. All right, fun chat tonight. Guys, football season's here. It's game week. All right, I got to go do prep work for a legit game preview podcast on 3Ma. Excited about that. If you are in the Kansas City area, come hang out with us at Holiday Distillery on Saturday for K-State, Iowa State, doing some live pregame, live postgame. It'll be awesome, man. I'm really looking forward to it. Hope to see a bunch of you out there. Please like the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Totally free. I would appreciate it if you could do that. And it would really mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video to sign up for that. If you have not ordered tickets with SeatGeek yet, $20 off your first order if you use promo code Kurtz on SeatGeek. And yeah. All right, Kurtz for commish. We'll end it with that. Pacific Northwest U, Kurtz for commish. Take care, guys. Enjoy your week, and I will talk to you all soon.